All right. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Perek Zayin Halacha Hey. We are going to be learning Daf Samach Hey. We left off on Daf Samach Hey Mamish on the top. However, we have to review Rabbi's statement in the bottom of Daf Samach Dalid Amid Aleph, and that is that we have a Mishnah in Maisos in which the Tana Rabbi Yehuda says that Ein Lenochri Kerem Revoi Kol Iker, and it's understood that he is not only referring to Eretz Yisrael. There, the issue in Eretz Yisrael is whether Yesh Kinyan La'akum, the Eretz Yisrael Hafkiyam and Amaisres, or Ein Kinyan La'akum. It doesn't matter this right now. The fact that we understand Rabbi Yehuda Shita in Maisres to be referring also to Syria, to Surya, why would it not be Kerem Revoi Kol Iker? And as we spoke out, really, not only Lenachri, but even for a Yid, that's predicated on Rebbe's understanding B'shitas Beishamai. And that is what we're going to come back to a lot in today's daf. And that is that Rebbe, our Beishamai, that says, for example, that there is no Choimish needed when you redeem Revoi, Kerem Revoi. That is because, and Rebbe says that Beishamai is only referring to the Shemitah year. Because Rebbe holds that Beishamai subscribes to the Gezeidah Shava between Kerem Revoi and Meiser Sheni. And therefore, actually, since there is a Gezeidah Shava, we compare them a lot to each other, almost fully to each other. So during the 6 years where you have to pay a Chaimish when you're pointed the Meiser Sheni to take to Yerushalmi, the same would be also by Kerem Revoi. Why does Beishamai say that when you redeem, if you redeem the Kerem Revoi, because you can't take the vines to Yerushalayim, you have to redeem it on money and buy food in Yerushalayim. Ein Chaimish, that's only in the Shemitah year. Why? Because on the Shemitah year, there's no Maisres altogether. That was Rebbe. So Rav Bibi, and even though we had a kasha on Rav Bibi, Rav Bibi still stands. The whole daf today, a lot of it will be based on Rav Bibi. Rav Bibi holds Gavaldik, that Rabbi Yehuda shares that understanding, like Beishamai does, that we make a Gezeidah Shava between Kerem Revoi and Meiser Sheni. And as we mentioned yesterday, that even though Midrabanan, Syria, that was conquered in the halachic category of Kibush Yachid, Midoiraisa, it's exempt from Trumas or Meisers. Midrabanan, you have to give Meiser from Peiroi, Syria. You have to give Truma, but you do not give Meiser Sheni at all. And since there's no Meiser Sheni at all in Syria, if we're going to follow this Gezeidah Shava, that's why there's no Revoi even Midrabanan in Syria. All of that is the Shita of Rav Bibi. And on Daf Samachei Amud Aleph, we're going to start today quoting a Shem Chacham called Haifa, right? In the Bavli, not that I don't remember such a name. Could be there is. But we're going to have a Haifa that is going to have a kasha on this approach. Now, what we will learn today is a few things that are very interesting. Also, all on the sugya of Revoi. Number one, that Yisrael benet Revoi el la'achar yudal shana, which means that when we entered the Holy Land, as we know from Chumash Rashi in the beginning of Kisaveh, Bikurim, right? That it took 14 years for us to be chayiv in Trumas Omaisis. But guys, you know something? Arla went into effect immediately. And normally we think that Revoi is a hemshech from Arla, which it is. The Torah puts it together. You plant a tree. The first halachic 3 years, Asur Bahana. On the 4th year, the Torah says, Kodesh Hilul Hashem, as we have been learning. That means that you have to take it to Yerushalayim, or you have to be poide it and take the money to Yerushalayim. And then on the 5th year, we're going to learn about the 5th year in today's daf at the end of the daf. So there is a link. Of course, there is a link, but we're going to see that it's not a link. Because when it comes to Arlo Yetchayev Miyad, the Kerem Revoi, this is all based on the link of Revoi to Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni, all Trumas Meisers only began, like Bikurim, after the Yudal Shana. So Lo Yischayev Yisrael Kerem Net Revoi El La'achar Yudal Shana. Another important topic, which is neged to the sugya that we already mentioned in the beginning of the Perek. And let me just quote a Mishnah in Babli, Kedushin Daf Nun Beis, Beferish Mishnah. The Mishnah is speaking about someone that was Mekadesh, a woman, b'maiser sheni. And there was a nuance that's not neged for our sugya, whether it's b'shogeg, whether it's b'mezid, right? Rav Meir holds that there will never be a scenario that this woman will become mikudeshes. Are you kidding? Maiser sheni? You think Maiser sheni is your money? Alama, you have to eat it in Yerushalmi. No. Rav Meir holds that Maiser sheni is mammon gavoya. The fact that Hashem invites you to eat on his table, very nice, but it's not yours at all. The Tana Rabbi Yehuda holds, in the case of a shoygig, again, it's not neged and a kuda, but we find in this Mishnah and Kedushin that there is a scenario where if a man is mekadosh a woman the ma'ois ma'aser sheni, or with the product of ma'aser sheni, she will be mikodeshes. That's because Rabbi Yehuda holds that ma'aser sheni is going to be ma'amin bal, and by the all predicated on this link that Rabbi made, that Rabbi followed between Neter Avoy and Mois and Ma'aser Sheni. Same kasha will be by Revoy. Is Revoy considered Mamin Balim, or is it considered Mamin Gavoya? That will be a topic. And Lamai Nafkimina, I'll give you a big Nafkimina, a simple kasha no one thought about. Do you have to give Maisres from Revoy? If Neter Avoy or Kerem Revoy is considered Mamin Gavoya, Avada Nish. For sure not. If Revoy is considered Mamin Balim, okay, so let's go with this concept that we make the Gezerah Shava, and we're going to follow Shittas Rabbi Yehuda by Ma'aser Sheni that it's Mamin Balim. If it's Mamin Balim, then maybe you have to give Ma'aser. Maybe. I'm not saying for sure. That's going to be a one topic. And the final similar topic is: do you have to take Challah off Kerem Revoy? I know, guys, that the whole thing of Revoy is not shaykh by produce. It's not shaykh by grain. How can you have challah? Revoy, whether it's only for a vineyard, we spoke out of machloikas tanoim, whether it's for all trees, so whether it's kedem revoy or whether it's also neta revoy, it's not shaykh to grain. There's no arla by grain, because grain, anything that you plant once and it only grows once, it's not shaykh 3 years, 4 years. It's a one-time thing. It's a one-time cycle. But like we're learning, if you cannot take the product of Kerem Revoy to Yerushalmi, you have to be paid it. What does that mean? It means that you exchange it for money. And with that money, you don't have to buy grapes or wine in Yerushalmi. You have to buy any food item. So it's shaykh for a person to take the money of Revoy and buy flour in Yerushalmi and HaKodesh. That's 100% okay. Question is, will you be chayiv to give challah from it? This is all connected to the link between Revoy to Ma'aser Sheni, and without any further ado, Chavren, this is Geshmak. Once you get it, it's Gavaldik, Daf Samach Hey Amud Aleph, all the way on top of it. Haifa. The Shem Chav, he asked, and this is all based on Rav Bibi's interpretation of Rabbi Yehuda in Masechtas Maasros, that Ein L'Nochri, Ein L'Nochri Revoy, Kerem Revoy, Koliket. And again, it's not only a Nochri, all based on the understanding of Rabbi B'Shitas Beis Shammai, that Rabbi Yehuda Amar Le'lamdu Neter Revoy Ela Ma'aser Sheni. Guys, this is again clear according to Rabbi, not according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Come on, the Tamar Ein Ma'aser Sheni B'Suri, and that's how we explain the meaning of Rabbi Yehuda. It wasn't only related to the Holy Land, and actually, it's in Syria. It's not only related to a goy; it's even lahavdil to a yid. It's about whether there is even midrabban in this obligation, and that's the whole part of Rabbi Yehuda that there is not. Why is that? Because the whole thing comes from Ma'aser Sheni, and just like there's no Ma'aser Sheni B'Suriya at all, not even midrabbanan. Truma, there is midrabbanan. Ma'aser Rishon, there is midrabbanan. Ma'aser Sheni, there isn't at all. So therefore, that was Bibi's understanding in the Tana Rabbi Yehuda. And I remember, Chevra, we had a kasha on Rabbi Bibi. So what? The Gemara is still going to be going, expounding these questions. Haifa's asking a question because he accepted Rabbi Bibi's interpretation of Rabbi Yehuda, or at least he's challenging him. So now comes the question, Oy bazoi, why would we not say something similar, which is that leilam do trumas toida ela mitrumas meiser? Wow, So before we go on, what is the Gemara talking about? What is Haifa talking about? Look in the top Marafulda. We learned it so many times together. When a person brings a carbon taidam, aside of it being one of the categories in Shlamim, there is something unique, and that is that the Torah says explicitly in Parashas Tzav that you have to bring with this carbon taida, you have to bring 40 arboim, 40 loaves of bread, meaning actually 10 of them are chametz gamur, 10 of them are called chalos. The pasuk uses these names. 10 of them are called rekikim, 10 of them are called rebucha, and 10 of them are called chametz. That's the only time that in a carbon yachid in the Beis Hamikdash there was chametz, halachic chametz. The only other exception is the shtei halechem communal carbon that comes on Shavuos. Look inside the top marafol, the trumas toida. Now the Torah says you have to bring 40, 10. The Torah says that you have to give from it. You have to give truma lashem, which means that you have to give from it a certain separation, a harama v'hafrasha to the kahanim. The Torah does not say how much do you have to give. It says v'hikriv mimenu echad mikol karben truma lashem. And our understanding is that it's from every 10 you have to give one. If not, maybe you would have to give one from the 40. It's not clear. That shenoitel in the marafulda shenoitel echad ma'asara truma lashem. And how do you know that the Gemara says in Menachos, the Perek HaToida, that there's a Gzeira Shav? In Parashas Tzav, it says, like we just quoted, the Hikriv Mimenu Echad Mikol Karban, and the pasuk concludes Truma Lashem. If you open up a Chumash, you'll see that this pasuk comes after the Torah enumerates that you have to bring chalois and a kikim and a bucha and chametz. Now, concerning Meiser, this is a pasuk that we have in Parashas Koirach, the general sugi of the Matnas Kohanim after the challenge of Koirach. There we're speaking about that even the Leviim that receive Meiser Ishoin, they have to give from it Trumas Hashem. We call that Meiser Mera Meiser. We call it here Trumas Meiser. The Gzeira Shavas from the word Truma. Says the Gemara in the Menachos Mahasam. In Koirach we know it means Echad Masara. From there we know Hachinami here by Lach Mei Toida Echad Ma'asara Min HaKoil. Not 1 out of 40, right? Which you could have said V'hikra V'imenu Echad Mikol Karben. The Kol Karben could have gone on the animal. No, on every type of bread, from every of the 10, you have to give one. Bottom line is you give 4 of these loaves to the Kohen. Now we're already in the Marafulda. Let's keep on reading the Marafulda. The Trumas Meiser Eino Bamidbar. It wasn't shaykh to have Trumas Meiser. Why not? Because the Leinis Chayvu B'Meisers At Sheva Shekitchu V'Sheva Shechilku, as we learn in Kedusha. So now that we are making a link, as we made between Revoi and Meiser Sheni, and because of that Gezeira Shava, we are coming to certain conclusions, and that is even Lekula. What's the even Lekula? That in Syria, even Midrabanan, you don't have to give Revoi. Not a Yid, not Lahavdullah Goy, no one. Why? Because we learn from Meiser Sheni. So Oibazoi, since the fact that you have to give, how do we have to give? The details of the Trumas Toida is learned also mitzad Gezeira Shava, not from Meiser Sheni, doesn't matter, from Trumas Meiser. So why don't we take that Gezeira Shava all the way to the end? It's Kamo the Tamar, just like we know that Ein Trumas Meiser B'midbar. So with the Kavase Luchuura Loitehei Trumas Toida B'midbar, there should not have been this Trumas Toida B'midbar, but no one subscribes to such a thing. We know that in the Midbar they brought karbanos in the category also of a Toida. They for sure brought these 40 loaves of bread, and there's no doubt that they gave from every type, from every 10, they gave one to a Kohen. In other words, you know what the Gemara is really talking about? I can't see the Gabay. This is so important, Shlomo. How far do you extend the Gzeira Shava? You can ask, why do we have to have Rabbi? Why do we have to have a Rabbeinu HaKadosh? Just, ask a kasha. Because without our sugya, you would have argued, you make a Gzeira Shava, you learn one detail. By a hekesh, Chazal say, ein hekesh lemechza. By other lemudim, we already know that if you make a comparison, you go all the way. It sounds like that no one had that understanding when it comes to a Gzeira Shava. And especially not, we got these words yesterday, to use it l'kula. No, you have a Gzeira Shava, you compare everything, you compare a detail. Mechuda would be, you have to take Ma'aser Sheni to Yerushalayim, so Revoy, you have to take to Yerushalayim. Ma'aser Sheni, if you can't take it, you get to redeem it, We get that. And without Rebbe, we would accept that Rab Shimon, that Beis Shammai who says that there's no chaimish. Doesn't matter. You can learn it from Ma'aser Sheni, but who says you learn everything? The whole vart of Rebbe, that's how we began the sugi, is if you make a Gzeira Shava, then it has to be all the way. So then Ma'aser Sheni has a chaimish when the owner is played it has to be by the void. Must be that Beis Shammai was speaking about only a Shemitah year. In other words, the whole sugi is based on a new understanding of how to apply a Gzeira Shava. And in other words, now that we see that a Gzeira Shava is applied in an unlimited fashion, so why do we not apply by the Gzeira Shava that we know we have from Trumas Meiser to Trumas Toida also in an unlimited fashion? That's the Gemara's kash. So Amar Rabbi Yosi, you can't compare one to the other. That when you already know the foundational rules from the din itself, even when you have to find out a detail and you can only find out the detail from a Gzeira Shava, then you only apply the Gzeira Shava to that detail. And that's the case by Trumas Toida. By Lachmei Toida, we know all of the dinim of Toida from the pasuk. The only one thing we don't know, how many do you give from the 40? And a chanami, for that you have a Gzeira Shava. But in that type of Gzeira Shava, we will never apply it in an unlimited fashion. That's the answer of the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yosi, lo ylamdu mimenu. This Gzeira Shava was only needed for the shear. Masha enkein by neta ravoy, like we mentioned, the Torah says that what happens on the 4th year? Kodesh ilul Hashem. We don't know what that means. Is it a korban? Maybe it's bikurim. Maybe you give it to the kohen. It's not clear. You say Hallel. We see the whole sugya. We don't know what it means. So when you need a Gzeira Shava to tell you the pshat of what you need to do, that Gzeira Shava, indeed, according to Rabbi, according to Beis Shammai, is applied in an unlimited fashion. For us to be able to say, Oy Bazoy, in Syria, there's not going to be Revoy Kolikah. But other Gzeira Shavas, since they were not needed for the Ikar Adin, they were only needed for, in this case, a shear, we will not apply it in an unlimited fashion. Different types of Gzeira Shavas. Go back. Says the Gemara Tanein, we learned in a Braisa, that Rabbi Yosi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, which is this Rabbi Yehuda that we're talking about. He had a son, Rabbi Yosi, and the Tana Rabbi Lazar, right? Rabbi Lazar, the son of the Rashbi, but Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Oimer, maybe we Oimrim, maybe the unity in Yerushalmis are so when they become one. That what? That loy nischayvu Yisrael benetaravoy elo la'achar arba esrei shana, which is the biggest chiddush. What's the 14 years? As we just actually quoted in the Marafulda regarding Maisres, Sheva Shekir, Sheva Shekil. And what the guys, the chiddush is that Orla, no question. This is not a tree that the Goyim planted. We're speaking about when Yidden entered Eretz Yisrael under Yeshua. If you planted a tree, the Yidden that planted trees were bound by the din of Orla miyad. And the whole vart of Revoy is the 4th year. It's like a hemshech of Orla. So a big chiddush. Even though Orla went into effect immediately, these Tanoim, Sai Rabbi Yosi but Rabbi Yehuda, Sai Rabbi Lazar, the son of the Rabbi Shimon, they hold that no, Netaravoy is like Maisres, and therefore it only went into effect after 14 years. So what was it? Was the way it is in Chutz La'aretz. In Chutz La'aretz, we paskin that there's Orla in Chutz La'aretz, but the Heter Achila anywhere you want begins on the 4th year. There's no Revoy in Chutz La'aretz. That is exactly how it was for the first 14 years. Now, Omar Rab Chizda, so he made a statement. This is all good. That it comes out that Rabbi Yosi but Rabbi Yehuda is following the shita of his father Rabbi Yehuda. And guys, this is all predicated on Abibi. That come on, that Rabbi Yehuda Omar. That what? That loy lamdu netavoy elam ma'aser sheni. Where do we find Rabbi Yehuda said it? In other words, it's not enough just to quote Rabbi, because Rabbi is explaining Beis Shammai. The Gavaldikeit of Rav Bibi was that Rabbi Yehuda subscribes to the way Rabbi interpreted the Beis Shammai. Rabbi Yehuda subscribes to the Gezeidah Shava, that we learn the Revoy from Meiser Sheni. And because of that, his father, Rabbi Yehuda, says there's no Meiser, and therefore, come on, the Temei Meiser Besuria. That's why the Kavas Eira to Revoy Besuria. If you're going to subscribe to the Shita, which seemingly Rabbi Yehuda does, we're accepting the approach of Rabbi Bibi. So now it works. That his son, Cain, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Amad, that Loinamdu Netanavai, same thing. All the way, it's a Gezeidah Shava that goes all the way. And since Ukamod, the Tamar, A, Maisa Sheni, Ella La'achar Arba Esri Shana, so the Kavase, A Netanavai, Ella La'achar Arba Esri Shana, Givaldik, it fits. It fits all the way the Gezeidah Shava. And now the Gemara has a great liner, and that is Amar Rabbi Yossi, who was subscribing to whom? Where is there a greater chiddush, guys? Even if we're going to use the Gezeidah Shava between Revai and Meiser Sheni, but as we began today's share, in other areas in the Torah, a Gezeidah Shava is not applied in an unlimited fashion. Gezeidah Shava can be used for a certain detail. So we're saying that both of them, they apply it not only for the detail that you have to eat it in Yerushalmi, Rabbi, Meiser Sheni. Not only that if you can't take the produce, you have to be poided. You have to be poided with a choimish, unless it's a Shemitah. It's all the way. In Syria, there's no Meiser Sheni, there's no Rabbi at all in Syria, not even Midrabanan, for no one. Look, we're applying the Gezeidah Shava all the way. And now we're saying that we're linking the Shita, well, there's no Meiser Sheni in the first 14 years. Which one is a greater chiddush? That you don't have revoi in Syria, or that you don't have revoi in the first 14 years? There are many laws you should know that were applicable in Eretz Yisrael during the 14 years. For example, Arla, Midoi Rais. There are many laws that are connected to produce of Eretz Yisrael. Many laws that are not biblically applicable to any other place. So the exclusion of Revoi from Syria is much easier than to exclude Revoi from the first 14 years. That's a much greater chiddush. So what Rabbi Yossi, the Amoyre Rabbi Yossi is saying, that I would word it the other way around. That we see from the son that he applies the Gezeidah Shava so stark that even in Eretz Yisrael, with Kedushas Haaretz, nevertheless, there is no Arla. That's clearly what he says, him and Ablaza ben Rab Shimon. So his father, the Tana...
No Arla? No Arla or no Revai?
No Revai, thank you, no Revai. So his father had an easier time saying, there's no Revai in Syria. Mashe'en came, the one, the Rabbi Yehuda, the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, if we're saying that the Tana Rabbi Yehuda in Maisra is speaking about this link, by saying that there's no Revai in Syria, Lav Dafke, Rabbi Yehuda would agree that there's no Revai in the first 14 years. Makes sense? In other words, even when we're saying a Gezeidah Shava is applied in an unlimited fashion, there's still limits. There's still some limits, like we're having a hard time with this. So Amar Rabbi Yossi says that no. Vehi b'shitas benoi. The right way of wording it is that the father, Rabbi Yehuda, who applies the Gezeidah Shava to Syria, is doing it based on his son Shita and Ablaza ben Rab Shimon, that the Gezeidah Shava is so strong that you're being moitze revoi from the first 14 years. That works. Syria lameidam arba esrei shana. But the other way around is a stretch. But ein arba esrei shana lameidam is Syria. It's shaykh, the Amoyre Rabbi Yossi is saying, it's shaykh to agree with Rabbi Yehuda. That what? That in Syria there is no revoi. And still not to agree with Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yehuda. And to say that in Eretz Yisrael there is revoi in the first 14 years. Because there is Arla in the first 14 years. So instead of saying the son holds like the father, it's better to say that the father, we see that the Tata holds like the son. How great is that?
Is there Rabbi now in Eretz Yisrael?
There is Rabbi now in Eretz Yisrael because it's a pasuk, yeah.
It's after the 14 years.
Yeah. The only thing that we don't have in Eretz Yisrael now, Well, midoiraisa. The truth is, it goes trumas umaisis is not midoiraisa. Chala is not midoiraisa. That's because you have to have the Rambam. We know this in the Rambam. Either you have to have the majority of the people living in Israel, and this is something that al pidara hatev is changing in our lifetime. Maybe it changed already. It's just a question of how many Jews are there in the world. It's not clear. On one hand, we know that there are many more Jews than we think. On the other hand, Rahman al-Islam, many of them are halachically because of assimilation. They're not Jewish. The moment there is more Jews in Eretz Yisrael than in the other countries, something changes. B'negeya trumas u'maisros. When it comes to challah, here it's already more complicated. Because I remember this also that by challah, it's not about having the roiv yeshveh aleh. When it comes to challah, it has to do with bias kulcham. It has to do with the way we entered. By Yeshua, we entered all together. And now we didn't enter all together. So if I'm not mistaken, you have these shittas that hold that challah midoiraisa, even in Eretz Yisrael, has to do with the kibbutz galuyus that Mashiach will do. There's going to be like a mass immigration. That never happened. Never happened. We never had in one time. How many Yidden live in Chutz La'aretz? I don't know. What are they saying, Danny? Now they're saying, but there's like 7 million Jews or 8 million Jews. Could be there's more. Imagine having 8 million Yidden going in one time. Bevayachem el haaretz. Not living in the land, but the way you enter. Bias kolchem. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's good investment. Guys, buy land in Israel. If you could, buy apartment buildings. I'm a Kenish, and buy your shtickle karka. They have where to put your coffee cup. Okay. Let's go back. Well, now, what we never discussed yet was the 5th year. So just to quote the pasuk, this is all in last week's parsha, Parshas Kedoshim. Right after we spoke about the 3 years of Arm, then the Torah says that in the 4th year, Kodesh Elul Hashem. So the pasuk reads, you can look inside the pasuk and Torah Oir Hashalom if you have it in your Gemaras. Ubashana HaChamishis Toichlu Es Piriyoi. Then the Torah writes words that you have to have. Lahoisev Lochem Tfu Asay. Toichlu Es Piriyoi I get. And the 5th year you can eat the fruits. There are no restrictions. What's Lahoisev Lochem Tfu Asay? So the pshat is that Hashem is giving you a brach. I put so many restrictions. You couldn't eat for the first 3 years, and even on the 4th year, you have to take it to Yerushalmi. So God says, when you follow my commandments, that you'll have more. You'll have a brach. That's the pshat. Here we're going to learn beyond the pshat. Actually, the Tana here, Rabbi Yossi Aglili is going to be focusing not on the words that the Brisa wrote, but on the hemshech. There's going to be some sort of addition. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Yomer, Harei at kemoisif peidas chamishis alaravis. The Torah, by saying that the 5th year is an addition to the 4th year, what is that? And this is called a link. You're making a link. What are we linking? To tell you that just like it's clear that the produce of the 5th year belongs, is property of the owners, of peidas revi is that even though on the 4th year you have to take it to Yerushalmi or you have to be paid it, lest you think that it's considered mamin gavoya, as we spoke on in our intro. It's not. Af peidas revias is also considered liba alim, and therefore, like we quoted the Mishnah in Kedushin, Daf Nun Beis in the Bavli, what happens if someone takes rivoi, kerem rivoi, or if you subscribe it to all fruits, not the rivoi, and they're makadosh a woman, will she be mikodeshes? So that's exactly what Rabbi Yossi Aglili is saying. Yes, she will be. And quickly chazaning, so the machloikas we have in Kedushin between Avmeir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Meir holds that Maisa Sheni is Mamoin Ba'alim, the Mamoin Gavoya, Mamoin Gavoya. Rav Meir. Rabbi Yehuda holds Maisa Sheni is Mamoin Baler. Now we are applying it to the Voy. And now you appreciate the topic, because according to Rav Bibi, right, that whole thing, according to Rabbi, according to Beis Shammai. But according to Rabbi, according to Rav Bibi, the same is with the Tana Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that we link it to Ma'aser Sheni. Rabbi Yehuda holds by Ma'aser Sheni, it's Mamin Ba'alim. Gavaldik, it fits. And Rabbi Yossi Aglili also holds that Netar Avoy is, in other words, we're going with the presumption that Rabbi Yehuda will hold Netar Avoy is Mamin Ba'alim. Why? Because according to Rabbi Bibi, Rabbi Yehuda holds the way Rabbi explained Beis Shammai that you make the Gzeira Shabbat. And we apply it all the way. It's Gavaldik. Turning to Daf Samachem and Beis, Rabbi Zeida says, in the name of Rabbi Yassi, that says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. It's just interesting, in the Yerushalmi, the B'Shem is only written on the last link. right? Everything is bekitzer. It means Rab Ze'eda b'shem Rabbi Yasa b'shem Rabbi Yechanan that Asya the Rabbi Yossi Aglili ke Rabbi Yehuda weiter. Kamo the Rabbi Yehuda oisa ken chasav. We're talking about Ma'aser Sheni. Kach Rabbi Yossi Aglili oisa ken chasav. Now, did Rabbi Yossi Aglili ever speak about Ma'aser Sheni? No, he did not. But that's the whole thing. We're going with the presumption that we make the link. Like, from where else would Rabbi Yossi Aglili get it? Even though you have the Lohoisiv, but it fits. It's based on Abibi. We're saying that Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Yehuda have the same shita. Sai by Ma'aser Sheni and Sai by Revoi. Now we never had that before, but now we have it. Now we're saying that the Tana Rabbi Yehuda based on Abibi. The Tana Rabbi Yehuda will hold by Revoi the way he holds by Ma'aser Sheni. By Ma'aser Sheni, it's a Beferish Mishnah in Kedushin that Ma'aser Sheni is Mamin Ba'alim. Now we're saying that the Tana Rabbi Yehuda will hold the same thing by Neter Avoid, that it's Mamin Ba'alim. So now, Rabbi Yirmiyah boy coming Rab Ze'eda, Kedivrei Mishu Ois is going to chasav. In other words, according to now that you're saying that it's Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda holds, of course, and Rabbi Yossi Aglili, right? By the Rabbi Yossi Aglili guys, there's no chiddush. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says it befedish, right? That the Revoy is Ba'alim. But based on this shita, let's go on Rabbi Yehuda. If you hold that, guys, that Revoi is Mamoin Gavoya, of course there's no Chi of Maisris at all. But if you hold that it's Mamin Ba'alim, then maybe you can still be potted. Maybe you're going to be Chayiv. That's the Kasha. That's the Boya. So Amalei.
Rabbi, isn't it the man of shock? Like if it's moment Govoya, then there is a coinish, right? If not, is there in between?
I'll tell you like this: if it's Mamin Ba'alim, logically you have to give Maises. But let's go back to the Gzeira Shava. It's all about how far do you make the Gzeira Shava. Let me ask you, Shleima, by Maiser Sheni, do you have to give Maises from Maiser Sheni? Of course not. That's the end. Because I take my Maiser Sheni to Yerushalmi, I eat it. So even though Rabbi Yehuda holds it's Mamin Ba'alim, Hamakadosh Isha B'Shoigig, Rabbi Yehuda says B'Kodeshes, but there's no Chiyuv, so Revoi, Mamin Ba'alim, all the way. Like, no, it's all about how far do you extend the Gzeira Shava. Very good. The Manaf Shach is saying logically. Here we're going with the Gzeira Shava. So Amalei, that's what he asked Rab Zeda. It says Rab Zeda that Kai the Amar Rabbi Shlomo Levi, just like Rabbi Shlomo Levi said elsewhere. The Amar Rabbi and Mishem Shlomo Levi, that whenever you have a doubt, I just want you to know that what the topic over there was is that if you have a Yisraelis woman who's pregnant, she was married to a Kohen, and she's pregnant, and the husband, God forbid, passed away. Now, if the child would be alive, the Torah says explicitly that since she has a child who's a Kohen, she gets to eat Truma. Her Avadim get to eat Truma. If she would have no children, the Torah says explicitly she goes back to the house of her father. She's a Yisraeli. She can no longer eat Truma. The kasha was, what happens if she's pregnant? Now, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who did not know the halacha, said, what should a Yid do when we don't know the halacha? Simply go out, see what's the minig of Yidden, and in Einam Nevi'im, they're B'nai Nevi'im, the Jewish community gets it right. That was his concept. That Lo Yisrael Davar halacha zu, that what I'm going to tell you is not only about this halacha, but in general, that Kol halacha, Shirei Fefes beBezdin, that means Bezdin has a doubt. The case was will the pregnancy allow her to eat Truma or not? It's even possible to say that while she's pregnant, she can't eat Truma. And if the son is born viable, then she could eat Truma. He didn't know. But not only for this case, that whenever Beis Din doesn't know, the Ein At Yudea Mativa, or it's Beis Din doesn't know. You yourself, sometimes Beis Din doesn't know, but you had a teacher you remember. No one knows. In your Chevra, say Urei Ma'at Tzibur Noyik. And you should know that God gives a special protection for the Jewish community that what they are doing is right, unahoik. And therefore, we had a kasha, do you have to give maisvis? Of netarevoi, va'anan chomei in the Yerushalmi is to see. We see that the tzibur is not mafresh. And by the way, all of this will fit, Shloime, Dafke Rav Bibi. No, we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda subscribes to Rabbi Beishamai. And he takes the Gzeira Shava all the way. All the way is that Meiser Sheni doesn't have to have Meisers taken off it. So neither does Kerem Levoy, even though it's Mamin Ba'alim. Amar Rav Mamam, Amar Rabbi Mana, Ilu Neimeke Beishamai. V'yesh Tzibur Oisim Ke Beishamai. Of course not. Let's read inside the Rashi Ilyo. He explains this beautifully. Look inside the Rashi Ilyo, 9 lines from the top on the right side. Your kasha was according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Sfira like Bishamai, as we learned the whole sugya, that Rav Bibi made that link, the Rabbi Yehuda and Meisers by Nevoy and Surya. But the Imkain, Ma Tifshoit Inyan Haminik. Faket, the whole sugya was that Rabbi Yehuda follows Beishamai. One thing is for sure, Chevron, we don't pass him like Beishamai. When we just learned the whole sugya, that the Gzeira Shava is according to Beishamai, Rabbi Yehuda, who holds like Beishamai, will also not be followed halachically. When people are noyig a certain way, they're being noyig according to the halach. So the tzibur's behavior is irrelevant to our question. The Gemara has the right to ask a question, L'shitas Beishamai. What would he hold here? What would he hold there? You can't say, go see what the people do. No, the people, for sure, we know, the people don't give off Meisers, but the people don't follow Beishamai. The people don't follow Rabbi Yehuda. The way we are understanding is the people don't subscribe to the whole Gzeira Shava. It's a whole different thing. Don't bring the meaning of the people. The boyer that Rabbi Yirmiyah asked was L'shitas Rabbi Yehuda, which is, we know it's not the halacha. The Gemara can ask a question that's not halacha l'maisa. According to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Beishamai, do you have to give meisers or not? So you cannot bring from what people do to resolve the question, because people for sure are not following like Beishamai. The Yeshiva go Beishamai. Amar Rab Avin, Klum Lamdu Netevoy Elma Meiser Sheni. And let me answer your question, not from what people do. Not from what people do. You're right. But let's go back. We are following the Shita that makes a link all the way to the end. To the point, that's the Chiddush, that even during the 6 years, you have to give a Chomish. Even Beishamai says you have to give a Chomish. When he says Ein Chomish, it's only on Shmiti. It's Mamash Gzeira Shava. Kamada Temer Ein Meiser Sheni Chai B'Meisters. Udekavasa Ein Otri Chai B'Meisters. That will be the answer. Not from what people do, but Taka from the Gzeira Shava. No, this is teaching you how to learn a Gzeira Shava when you're learning the Ikar Adin from the Gzeira Shava. Okay, now let's go weiter. Says the Gemara Rabbi Bam. Here again, it's like in the name of Rabbi Chia, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Isas Meiser Sheni Yerushalmi. This is first the statement. When you make a dough, and you want to know whether you have to give challah off the dough, before we go on again, just repeat the Mishnah in Kedushin. Hamakadesh Isha. Rabbi Meir says never mikodeshes. There was a shregig umezid that's not important now. Rabbi Yehuda holds sometimes she's mikodeshes. In other words, machlokes, whether it's called mamin gavaya, mamin balam. One of the nafkaminas will be when you make a dough in Yerushalmi from Meiser Sheni, do you have to give challah off it? So let's go further. Kenab Meir that holds that Meiser Sheni is mamin gavaya pturim and achal. Kenab Yehuda who holds mamin ba'alim will be chayiv in challah. And before we go on, says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Yoina, I want you to know that this statement, that whether Meiser Sheni is chayiv in challah, it's being contingent on Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. That is only when you make it in Yerushalayim, when you make the dough in Yerushalayim. But whenever you make challah, big gvulin, with the dough of Meiser Sheni, l'kula alme, it's not going to be subject to challah. Why not? Because by challah, the Torah uses the words reishis, ari soy seichem. Not reishis, arisa. The beginning of the dough. Challah, you make the dough, right away separate challah. The Torah says your means you have to be able to eat it. Meiser Sheni cannot be eaten outside Yerushalmi. It's not fully yours. Independent of Gavaya or Hedyet, Gavaya or Ba'alim, independent, if it's not yours, there's no Chiyuv Challah. And now, why do we have to say that? because now we're going to bring it back to the Revoi. You got that? That's important. So Rabbi Bar Koyin asked in front of the Amoira Rabbi Yosi, that's the second topic of the Mishnah in the beginning of Kol Zayis. And again, yes, we're asking according to Beis Shammai. The question was, when you have the 4th year vineyard, are you chayiv in peret or you're not chayiv in peret? Beis Shammai says you're chayiv in peret. We explained that Beis Hillel, according to Beis Hillel, that's the way we explain the Mishnah. We're going to stand with that. That we make Gzeira Shava to Ma'aser Sheni. Beis Hillel holds that Ma'aser Sheni is Mama in Gavoya. Mama in Gavoya. Mama in Gavoya is not chayiv in any matnas aniyim. It belongs to God. That's why Beis Hillel says in the Mishnah that there's no peret and there's no oilerless in Kerem Roy. Beis Shammai has, there is peret. Mama in Ba'alim, it is more yours. That's what we're saying. So Mao Shetei Chayeves Bechala. And like we spoke on in the intro, people are asking, what are you talking about? How can you have challah from peret? I'll tell you how. Because it's Revoi. Speaking about Revoi. That means the ani got the peret from the 4th year. What does he do with it? The ani also can only eat it in Yerushalmi. The ani is going to Yerushalmi in 8 months. The grapes won't live. He sells it for money. He takes the money, and in Yerushalayim, he's allowed to buy flour. He can buy any food item. Do you have to give challah from Revoi? That's the kash. Now, the truth is, it's not only on the ani, it's on anyone. Why are we not asking according to Beis Hillel? I chap it. Because according to Beis Hillel holds that Revoi is mama in Gavoya. If mama is Gavoya for everyone, of course there's no challah. But since we see that Beis Shammai says Yechayiv in Peret is the Charayitz Mamin Ba'alim, so what's the din? Whether the Ani takes it, the Peret, whether the owner takes the Ikar of Revoi, whether Yechayiv Chala. So Amalei, that the law Rabbi Yehuda he. This is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you're subject in Chala. Look inside the Pnei Moshe. Rabbi Yehudi. This whole kasha is only the Beis Shammai. Like we said, according to Beis Hillel, we're not asking this kasha, but according to Beis Hillel, we hold that it's Mam and Gavoya. The whole sugi, the whole daf today was based on Abivi's link. Rabbi Yehuda, we just said from Rabbi Yehuda that he says Ma'aser Sheni Chayev is Bechala. We just said that. So who adin at the Revoi? Like, why are you even asking? Oh, for sure, yes, Chayev. Of course, you'll be Chayev. So why were you even asking? Look inside the Gemara. And therefore, just like Rabbi Yehuda holds that we said Revoi is Chayev and Chala in Yerushalmi. In Yerushalmi, we just said that, and we're making a link. Rabbi Yehuda holds Ma'aser Sheni, so the same thing will be here by Revoi. Bottom line is that yes, Revoi in Yerushalmi, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Beis Shammai, will be Chayiv and Chala. And according to Beis Hillel, it won't be Chayiv and Chala, even though Beis Hillel makes the links to Ma'aser Sheni. That's because Beis Hillel holds that Ma'aser Sheni, like Rabbi Meir, is Mama in Gavoya. This is